Hi everybody, this is the original Josh back with Cronsley USA Pressure Washer Perfection, and today we're going to continue our plumbing tips series. The hot tip right now pertains to elbows feeding into your pressure washer pump. So I hate to admit it, but there are sometimes necessary evils, and one of those might be that you have to make a bend to feed water into your pressure washer. So we get several calls for elbows or assemblies to make a tight bend up to the inlet of the pressure washer pump so that on a shelf, for instance, you can have the machine sitting this way and feeding the hose up into the pump, since our hose, at least the hose that I prefer you to use, isn't going to bend particularly well to feed into the pressure washer pump. Remember, this machine wasn't necessarily specifically designed to sit on a shelf like this. The Germans, in their pictures and literature, have people walking around and using this at place to place to place. So ideally, it's best to be using a flexible connection to feed from your spigot to the inlet of the pressure washer. It gives you the least likely possibility of cavitation. It's just what we understand is the Germans' intent in the design. However, as we integrate it into our garage setups, or perhaps your mobile detailing setup, you may find it necessary to make a bend up into your pump. So know this, there are consequences to that, and this is how you can avoid those consequences as best as possible. When possible, use your flexible line going to the pump. If that is not possible, the preferred type of bend to use are fittings like this cast fitting that has a clean sweep bend to it on the inner diameter. So the water is not hitting a bunch of weird jagged edges, which are going to be good places for cavitation to be created and then fed into the pump. With an elbow like this, it looks really nice, and if this was female on both sides, I could make it into an assembly really easy. And it even sits clean. For those of you that don't mind the brass colored fittings, it's uniform. However, unfortunately, this fitting, the way that it's machined, they drill in from both directions. Once this way, once this way, and then once this way. Because of that, you get several steps and edges that are just going to be nice little areas where you'll be churning that water up and creating little pockets of bubbles, and that's going to then harm your pressure washer pump. If you have water supply issues where your water flow isn't quite adequate or is just on the threshold, you almost can never use elbows, and that's an unfortunate circumstance. You're gonna have to find a way to feed more water to your pressure washer pump in order to get it to run properly. And in those cases where you're really close to the threshold of what this is demanding, then I would remove elbows altogether. It might be necessary. I know it looks best sitting on the shelf like there, but might have to flip the opposite direction. So just remember, if you're using an elbow, make sure it's one that has a nice clean sweep on the inner diameter. A little shout out to Obsessed Garage. They have the stainless steel version of this in 3/4. You could use that to make some mating connections to feed into the pump, but avoid making too many extra unnecessary connections, because every time you make an additional connection or additional elbow, there's one more invitation for cavitation for the pressure washer pump. And while we're on the topic of fittings to supply water to your pressure washer, let's also take a moment to talk about hard piping up to your pressure washer pump. I recommend never running hard pipe all the way to the inlet of your pressure washer. One of the main reasons would be that there's very few ways that you would feed the water up to the pressure washer that wouldn't include a bend right next to the pump. And often when you do offsets, it's going to have two bends, which is multiple opportunities for cavitation. Another possibility is that if you've ever experienced water hammer in your appliances in your home, that is essentially will affect the water flow throughout your entire house. If this is hard piped right into your plumbing of your home, then this is also going to experience the effects of that water hammer, and that's going to definitely cause cavitation. So if you use a hose from the spigot to the pressure washer, especially if it's a good 10 to 30 feet long, that's a good amount of time for the flow in the hose to kind of balance out that change in flow throughout the house. So if you absolutely have to have hard pipe coming up to the machine, you should include a small section of flexible line between the hard pipe before you feed it into the pressure washer. So thank you for joining us here today. If I didn't cover something that you're interested about that particular topic, leave it in the comments section below. You can also call our office. This is the original Josh with Kronza USA, Pressure Washer Perfection.
Kronza USA, Pressure Washer Perfection.